morning. Thank you for joining us here on India Tonight. I'm Nivedna Prabhu, and with me is my colleague Smita Karir. For the next 1 hour, we definitely take you to the top developments of today. But let's begin with our top focus this evening. The US State Department has said that US Ambassador to India, Sergio Gor, and Deputy Secretary for Management and Resources, Michael J. Riggis, have travelled to meet with government officials, in fact, in the national capital to discuss a wide range of bilateral issues. Now, the two US officials will hold talks with their counterparts till October 14th, and a statement by the Department of State claims, or rather adds also, while speaking about that, the United States will continue to work with India to strengthen their strategic partnership and promote a safer, stronger and more prosperous Indo-Pacific region. Remember, the visit also comes in the midst of India-US trade deal talks, Sumita.
And that backdrop is crucial for this visit. Meanwhile, the head of JP Morgan, JP Diamond, has said that there is a higher risk of a serious fall in US stocks than is currently being reflected in the market, and he's also criticized these tariffs. This visit by Sergio Gor is happening after Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to the US President Donald Trump. PM Modi appreciated Trump's role in the Gaza ceasefire. So the question that we are asking, ladies and gentlemen, on the show tonight, are these developments a sign of a possible thaw that can be achieved with respect to India-US as far as the trade deal between both the sides is concerned? And we'll take that question and many others to a stellar panel of guests who's joining us on this broadcast live. Well, joining us is Dr. Monish Thorungbam, Senior Research Consultant at Chintan Research Foundation. Joining us also is Raymond Vickery, former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Trade Development, and Meera Shankar, former Indian Ambassador to the United States and Germany. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and Ms. Shankar, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. And let me begin with you, Ms. Shankar, first. US Ambassador designate Sergio Gor is visiting India. There is another US official as well. The State Department essentially says that this is about discussing a broad range of bilateral issues without delving deeper. So what specific issues will Sergio Gor and the other government official, both of them are likely to prioritize here in India?
Look, I don't want to speculate on what they will discuss, but clearly the call between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump at least points to some improvement in the overall tenor of the relationship, because Prime Minister Modi has praised the Gaza peace deal, which could lead to a ceasefire and an end to hostilities in Gaza, the resumption of humanitarian assistance, withdrawal of troops, and eventually to a peace deal. So this for a two-state solution. So this is something, I think, which in a sense emphasizes the areas of convergence between the two countries rather than the areas of dissonance, which have been very much at the forefront in recent months. There's also talk that there could be progress on trade issues, because you've had Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal visit Washington, and then you are now having the possibility of the US Ambassador designate coming for talks to India. And overall, both leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, agreeing to monitor progress in the trade talks, with Prime Minister Modi saying that there has been progress. So some signs of greater optimism on the possibility that the two sides are breaking some of the logjam on the trade deal. But I suppose, given the kind of swings there have been in the negotiations, I don't want to prematurely say that we are close to closing a trade deal, because nothing definite has been put out in public.
Right, Ms. Shankar. Perhaps if you put it in a nutshell, you're so close yet so far in terms of how this is, navigating and panning out as well. But fair point, given how you're looking at that. But let me take the same point across to Mr. Vickery. Mr. Vickery, given the timing of this and essentially the phone call that also did transpire between both the leaders as well, and this is an important visit, how are you reading into this first?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think there is no international problem that can't be helped by close cooperation between these two largest and, I would argue, greatest democracies in the world, India and the US. So further talks are very welcome. Nevertheless, we have seen over the past month the tariff dispute, the imposition of the highest tariffs in the world against India, both on this overall 25% and then another 25% for dealing in Russian oil. And you pile that on top of putting a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas, claiming President Trump claiming credit for solving a problem between Pakistan and India, which India has denied. Damage has been done to the relationship. I think there's too much in common between the U.S. and India to say the relationship is not important and to say that there won't be progress. But we're entering into an era of transaction. The Trump approach is that of a real estate developer. Instead of trying to develop a relationship, to see what you can get out of any particular transaction. This is contrary to what we have been trying to build for the last 30 years through the civil nuclear deal, through other exchanges in technology. And while it's welcome that there's continued negotiation, and I think India has been very circumspect in its response, one has to look at the overall relationship and say we have to get back to an era of trust as opposed to just trying to win a particular negotiation.
Absolutely, Mr. Vickery, you put it very rightly. Trust is going to be the key factor that will drive all of these, negotiations, whether they're related to trade or other issues that India has with the United States. On that note, let me come to you, Dr. Munish. Dr. Munish, even though the Prime Minister called President Trump his good friend, and he also said that good progress has been achieved in trade talks, however, Ms. Shankar was stating just a short while back that she thinks that perhaps both the countries are not close to closing a trade deal. Realistically, where do you think things are at the moment, given the fact that we've seen positive commentary that's coming from both the sides?
Again, thank you for having me, and I concur largely with two panelists. I think it's important to note what Mr. Goel also has said, which is that the trade talks are ongoing. There is progress nonetheless, but also he mentioned that India is not going to engage in any trade talks with very firm deadlines. I think that's an important word to keep in mind, that as long as I think there is not much of an arrangement where both the sides feel that some grounds have been covered in terms of meeting some of the concessions that both the sides were requiring from each other, keeping the red lines that India has in terms of some sectors that we would want to protect. So all of these things, I think, are going to be kept in mind, and nothing is going to be done for the sake of meeting some deadlines. I think that's quite important. I also would like to draw your attention to the other Western partners with which we are undergoing either free trade agreement talk. I'm talking about the European Union, which is going on at this point of time. And also, we recently had the visit of the UK Prime Minister, and we have had a trade deal with the United Kingdom. So I believe that in Washington as well, there would be some thinking through in terms of the diversification that is going on from New Delhi's side. And I believe that Trump's advisors, despite all, the grandstanding and all the social media, social media ballast that they have put forward, do understand the importance of India as a trade partner, do understand that there are other partners to whom India can reach out in the process of diversification. And I think I really hope that better sense prevails, at least in Washington D.C., in terms of taking this relationship forward and not squander all of the things that has been done for so many years. I think in the point of there's a positive, cautious optimism. That's the word I would use in terms of at least the leadership coming back online in terms of talking to each other. And the ambassador designate who has been confirmed recently also coming to India in terms of, I think, really, getting a lay of the land, before he comes to India finally. And also, I think it's also a step for the possible, I'm using the word possible, Trump-Modi meeting on the sidelines of the ASEAN meeting in the end of October, perhaps, and also a discussion for as and when the Quad Summit is going to take place. So there is a lot of things on the plate, and I think we should go ahead with cautious optimism that some things are back
imperative points.
online.
In fact,
the
we'll
leadership
come back
talks
to
are back
all
online.
those aspects that you have pointed out. Also, that very important meeting. But let me also take that particular point of the optics of this, friendship between Modi and Trump to Ms. Shankar. Ms. Shankar, when you're looking at this, do you think both sides are now trying to reframe that relationship to look pragmatic rather than personal, given all that we've seen transpired, including the kind of language that has been used?
Look, I would hope that is the case, but I think we have to wait and see. I would agree with the cautious optimism that is being expressed, but the unpredictability in terms of how the Trump administration views and approaches relationships overall, and also with India, I think is something which gives us pause for thought. But I'm glad that at least there has been some thaw in terms of the leadership trying to give a positive thrust to the trade negotiations and overall, talking to each other more frequently. The message from institutional Washington, I think 21 Democratic lawmakers have signed and, sent a letter to President Trump asking that it's important that relations with India be reset. And of course, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, told BBC that India and the US were close to a tariff deal. But as I said, till it's finally inked, till the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, you cannot, prematurely take any such development for granted.
Absolutely, Ms. Shankar. Let me ask a follow-up question, given the fact that what Dr. Monish essentially said, that there could be a meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi on the sidelines of the summit. So from your experience as a diplomat, could there be any preconditions which would be looked at by both the sides for that meeting to happen? For instance, probably a mini deal?
Well, India's preference has been for leaders to meet after deals have been concluded, not to actually negotiate the details of the deal. I suppose President Trump's approach is to basically announce deals after he has met leaders, basically that he achieved that breakthrough, I think is important to him in terms of the way he approaches personal success in these negotiations. So I suppose we'll have to wait and see, because neither leader has confirmed as yet that they are going for the ASEAN summit. So that's a possible venue for their meeting if they do go. But I think we have to wait and see. And perhaps this could hinge on whether a successful trade negotiation is concluded or not. But I think for India, it's the solidity of a trade agreement which would address the concerns of both sides, which is important, rather than an artificial deadline.
Right. In fact, as you pointed out, Ms. Shankar, Mr. Vikri, let me get you in here as far as Gor is concerned, because he's not obviously a conventional diplomat. He's a Trump confidant, a campaign insider, and a political loyalist as well. But what does that tell us about how the Trump administration intends to shape the India file? More personalistic, transactional, or strategic, given what you were talking about, how Trump also makes his deals in terms of, if you were to talk about it in your own words, like real estate?
Well, I think the appointment of Mr. Gore indicates what I had just said about it being transactional. Unfortunately, Mr. Gore doesn't have any diplomatic background or experience. To make matters worse, he has received this further appointment as a special envoy to all of South Asia. We have fought, those of us who have been in favor of the US-India relationship, for a dehyphenating of India from Pakistan, certainly, and in consideration of this great democracy on its own. Unfortunately, the signal sent by having Mr. Gore nominated for the ambassadorship is that the progress we've made in regard to having a relationship of India and the U.S. on its own merits is detracted from by this approach. We are very pleased, of course, that there are continued talks, but make no mistake about it, there is now a leadership vacuum among the democracies in the world. This is a time for India to step forward, not just in terms of a bilateral negotiation, but leadership on those principles which are necessary to wage peace and prosperity throughout the world. As has been pointed out, reaching out to other democracies like the United Kingdom, in the European Union, Japan are important, because there are values which have to be put forward if we're going to have peace and prosperity. And at this point, we in the United States are not capable of doing that. Our government is shut down right now. We're sending troops into Chicago and Portland. So there's a time for India to step forward and provide leadership in this area.
Right, Mr. Vikri, you raised two very important points. Of course, the shutdown of the government in the United States, and the second point about United States growing ties with Pakistan. So let me build on that and let me go to Dr. Munish. Now, US's growing ties with Pakistan has been a source of concern for India once Gore assumes office. How do you see this issue getting addressed? And if this is not something that is the priority of the Donald Trump administration to handle or address, how do you think India will take that up with the US administration?
Well, I think, again, this is something that has been expressed quite, intently all across the board in the Indian strategic community. And America's closing ties, or the new dynamism in its ties with Islamabad, is something that is being watched very closely in New Delhi, I think. But at the to take things more pragmatically, I believe that we need to understand that the US has interest in Pakistan and post-Afghanistan. This is a new dynamic which is emerging, which has to be watched very closely in New Delhi and has to be communicated to Mr. Gore and also to the larger regional bureau that is going to develop in and around it. And I think uh, there are certain red lines that have been drawn as far as U.S. relations with Pakistan is concerned. I mean, U.S.-Pakistan relations is something that cannot be directed from New Delhi. It's not something that New Delhi can control either. But there are certain red lines that have to be drawn and communicated to the U.S. administration. And I think to take matters more pragmatically, I would say that um, whatever it's the credentials of Mr. Gore as the U.S. ambassador to India is a reality now. We have to take that into consideration, and we need to think about
Absolutely.
how to navigate and deal with this. And I think also that also keep in mind, hello, yeah, also keep in mind that at the time of the confirmation of Mr. Gore, Mr. Paul Kapoor has also been confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asia. And he is someone who has long years of experience studying South Asia and is very well connected in New Delhi circles. So I think these two appointments and confirmations from the Senate has to be taken into consideration. And this
Right.
is the reality. And we have to see how we deal with the new appointment and how we can make sure that we protect and promote our own interests while pushing ahead
Absolutely.
this relationship.
Absolutely, Dr. Munish. And of course, the mood or the sentiment as of now that prevails between both the nations, and as all of you agree with, is that of cautious optimism. Having said that, we'll have to see the kind of convergences that both the countries can really draw as to how that US-India deal really progresses. That remains to be seen. But for the moment, thank you very much, gentlemen, and Ms. Shankar, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now.